Just another truck to fix, or so he thought. But inside, a secret was waiting, one that would bring black SUVs to his doorstep and change his life forever. It was a cold evening when Ray locked up his small auto shop, rubbing the grease off his hands with an old rag. Business had been slow, but he never turned anyone away if they needed help. That's just the kind of man he was. That night, just as he was about to close the garage, a beat-up old truck rolled in, coughing out smoke. The driver, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, stepped out hesitantly. "Sorry to bother you this late, but she won't start." Ray glanced at the truck. It looked like it had seen better days. "Don't worry about it," he said, grabbing his toolbox. "Let's take a look." The man shuffled his feet. I, uh, I don't have much to pay you. Just need to get back on the road." Ray just waved him off. "Money's not the problem. Let's just get you going." The repair took longer than expected. Rusted wires, a failing battery, things most mechanics wouldn't bother fixing without a paycheck. But Ray wasn't most mechanics. He worked under the dim garage light, refusing to let the man leave with a broken truck. When the engine finally roared to life, the man's eyes softened. "I don't know how to thank you." Ray just smiled. "Drive safe." The man hesitated, as if wanting to say something else, but then just nodded and got into his truck. As he drove off into the night, Ray thought nothing of it. Just another good deed. But a week later, everything changed. A black SUV rolled up to his shop, its windows tinted so dark he couldn't see inside. It wasn't the kind of car that passed through this part of town. It parked silently in front of his garage, the engine humming low, powerful. Ray felt his stomach tighten. Something about this didn't feel right. The back door opened. A man in a dark suit stepped out. His movements were calm, precise. He adjusted his cufflinks and then looked directly at Ray. "We need to talk." Ray wiped his hands on his jeans, his heart thudding against his ribs. Something about this man felt off. He wasn't some regular customer looking for a tune-up. The way he carried himself, the way he stood, calm, controlled, and in charge. The man in the suit took a step closer, his polished shoes barely making a sound on the pavement. "A week ago, you fixed a truck for a stranger," he said, his voice smooth but unreadable. Ray stiffened. "I don't keep track of every car that rolls in." The man smirked as if he expected that answer. "This one, you should." He reached into his coat. Ray tensed, instinctively bracing himself. But instead of a gun, the man pulled out a leather wallet and flipped it open. A badge. FBI. Ray's throat went dry. "Look, I don't know who that guy was, but—" "His name isn't important," the agent interrupted. "What's important is what he left behind." Ray frowned. "Left behind?" He took his truck and drove off. The agent studied him for a long moment, then reached into his pocket again. This time he pulled out a small Ziploc bag. Inside was something that made Ray's stomach twist. A key. Old, slightly rusted, but definitely not a car key. Ray exhaled sharply. "What is that?" The agent tilted his head. "You tell me." Ray shook his head. "I've never seen it before." "Interesting." The agent slipped the key back into his pocket, because it was found taped under the dashboard of the truck you repaired. And now the owner of that truck is missing. Ray's blood ran cold. Missing. He thought back to the man. Tired eyes, hesitant words, almost like he was running from something. Ray had ignored it at the time, but now he wasn't so sure. The agent's voice pulled him back. "We need to know everything he said, every detail, because whatever was in that truck, someone wanted it hidden." Ray swallowed hard. He had helped a stranger out of kindness, but now it looked like that simple act had just pulled him into something far, far bigger. Ray ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. "Look, man, I just fixed the truck. That's all. He didn't tell me anything. He barely spoke." The agent didn't blink. "And yet, less than 24 hours after you touched that vehicle, he vanished." Ray exhaled sharply, trying to remember any details he might have overlooked. He seemed nervous, kept looking over his shoulder, like he was waiting for someone. But I didn't ask questions. He needed help, so I helped. The agent studied him for a long moment. then reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. We ran the plates. That truck was reported stolen 15 years ago. Ray's stomach twisted. That doesn't make sense. It was old, sure. But stolen? Why would someone keep a stolen truck for that long? The agent unfolded the paper, revealing a faded black and white photograph. It showed a man in military fatigues standing next to the same truck, only much newer. Ray's eyes narrowed. That's him, isn't it? The agent shook his head. That's his father. Ray blinked. What? The man you helped isn't just anyone. His name is Daniel Grayson. His father, Colonel Thomas Grayson, went missing in action during a classified mission overseas. The official report says he died, but some people don't believe that. Ray felt a chill run down his spine. So you think the key was his? We don't think, Ray. We know. The agent took a step closer. The problem is, that key doesn't match anything in our database. No known locks, no records, nothing. But if someone went through this much trouble to hide it, it must open something important. Ray let out a slow breath, realizing just how deep he had fallen into something he didn't understand. And now you think whoever took Daniel is after that key? The agent nodded. Which is why you need to come with us. Ray froze. Come with you? Where? The agent's expression darkened. Somewhere safe, because if they haven't come for you yet, they will. A sharp noise cut through the air, the distant hum of an approaching engine. Ray turned toward the road, eyes narrowing. A second black SUV was coming, but this one didn't have government plates. The agent cursed under his breath. Too late. Ray barely had time to react before the unmarked SUV screeched to a stop and the doors flew open. Whoever these men were, they weren't here to talk. Ray's pulse pounded in his ears as three men stepped out of the unmarked SUV, dressed in dark tactical gear. No badges, no insignias. Their movements were sharp, rehearsed. These weren't regular thugs. They were professionals. The agent beside Ray muttered, "Stay behind me." His hand drifted toward his holster. One of the men, a tall figure with a scar running down his cheek, took a step forward. Ray Dawson? Ray didn't answer. Scarface smirked. We don't want trouble. Just hand over the key. Ray's mouth went dry. He glanced at the agent, who didn't move. His fingers remained wrapped around his gun, but he hadn't drawn it yet. A silent standoff. Scarface tilted his head. You don't know what you're holding, do you? Ray swallowed hard. Why don't you tell me? The smirk disappeared. That key is the last piece of a puzzle that should have stayed buried. Give it to us, and this ends right now. Ray's mind spun. If the government didn't know what the key unlocked, then who were these men, and why were they so desperate to get it? The agent finally spoke. You're trespassing on federal jurisdiction. Walk away. Scarface chuckled. Federal? Please. You have no idea who you're up against. And then, without warning, he reached into his jacket. The agent moved first. His gun was out in a flash, but Scarface was faster. He lunged, knocking the weapon aside. A gunshot rang out, missing its target, and chaos exploded. Ray ducked behind a workbench as the other two men rushed forward. The agent managed to take one down with a well-placed elbow, but the third man swung a baton hard against his ribs. The agent stumbled, gasping. Ray's eyes darted around his shop. He wasn't a fighter. He didn't have a gun, but he did have tools. His hand landed on a heavy wrench. Scarface grabbed the agent by the collar, slamming him against Ray's truck. Last chance. Where's the key? Ray made his choice. With everything he had, he swung the wrench. It connected with Scarface's arm, making him howl in pain. The agent used the distraction to break free, tackling the second man to the ground. But Scarface wasn't done. He turned toward Ray, fury burning in his eyes. Big mistake. And then, the distant sound of helicopter blades, loud, getting closer. Scarface's expression twisted. You called backup? The agent grinned, blood on his lip. Not me. Ray looked up just as a massive military helicopter roared overhead, its spotlight flooding the garage in blinding white light. Armed soldiers rappelled down, their weapons locked on the intruders. A booming voice echoed from above. "Stand down!" Scarface's team hesitated, then bolted. They scrambled for their SUV, tires screeching as they sped off into the night. Ray slumped against his workbench, his breath shaky. A soldier approached, his uniform marked with a name tag, Grayson. He looked at Ray, then at the agent. "You have something that belongs to my father." The agent pulled the key from his pocket and handed it over without a word. Grayson studied it, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded. It's time to finish what he started. Ray exhaled, realizing that fixing that truck had just rewritten his entire life. And somehow he knew this was only the beginning. Ray stood there, the cold night air pressing against his skin as the soldiers secured the area. The weight of everything that had just happened settled over him like a heavy storm cloud. He had spent his life fixing engines, not uncovering secrets buried in the past. And yet here he was, caught in the middle of something far bigger than himself. Grayson turned the key over in his fingers, his expression unreadable. My father trusted only a few people with this. If he left it behind, it means he knew one day the truth would have to come out. Ray let out a slow breath. And what exactly is that truth? Grayson met his gaze. That some things are worth protecting, no matter the cost. Ray glanced at the agent, who nodded slightly as if confirming that this wasn't just another job. It was something bigger, something that had been set in motion long before Ray had even picked up that wrench. He could have walked away, pretended none of this had happened. But deep down, he knew that wasn't who he was. He had been raised to do what was right, no matter how tough the road ahead. Grayson extended a hand. You helped my father's legacy without even knowing it. Now you have a choice. You can go back to your life and forget this ever happened, or you can help finish what he started. Ray looked at the hand in front of him. The weight of the decision pressed against his chest, and then with a steady breath, he reached forward and shook it. Because some mysteries were worth solving, some fights were worth standing for, and sometimes a simple act of kindness could change everything. Life has a way of bringing unexpected turns, and sometimes the smallest choices lead to the biggest changes. Ray could have ignored the broken truck, but his willingness to help set off a chain of events that would alter his life forever. Maybe that's the real lesson here. Every act of kindness has a ripple effect, reaching further than we can ever imagine. And who knows? Maybe the next time you help someone, you'll be part of a bigger story than you ever dreamed of. If you love this story and want more thrilling tales that keep you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe to Legacy Tales. Hit the like button and let us know in the comments. What would you have done in Ray's place? Would you take the risk? Stay curious, stay kind, and we'll see you in the next story.